Thanksgiving's always been bittersweet for me, but nothing could have prepared me for that moment, the one that cracked something in me I'll never be able to glue back together. We arrived right on time. Me, my 2 kids, and a store-bought pie I picked up because my oven's been unreliable, but also because, honestly, I knew deep down it didn't matter. Not to them. Still, I tried. We dressed up. I curled my daughter's hair. My son carried the pie with both hands like it was some sacred offering. We walked up the porch together. I told myself this year would be different, that maybe they'd finally see us. I opened the front door to the sound of clinking glasses and too much laughter, the kind that stings when you haven't been a part of it in years. I looked into the dining room. There it was, the long wooden table, lit candles, fancy china, gravy boats, my mom's roasted turkey sitting like a centerpiece trophy, every seat filled. Cousins I hadn't seen in forever. My uncle cracking a joke with my younger brother, even his new girlfriend. She got a seat, but there was no space for us, not even 3 extra chairs, no name cards, no empty plates, not even a high chair for my daughter. I stood in the hallway, heart thudding in my ears. My son squeezed my sleeve and whispered, "Where do we sit, Mama?" His voice was so small, like he already knew the answer. I looked toward the kitchen, trying to catch my mom's eye. She barely glanced up from the mashed potatoes she was scooping into a crystal bowl. I stepped closer and asked quietly, "Mom, where should we sit?" She didn't even turn around, just shrugged. "Like it?" "Was nothing." "I wasn't sure if you were coming," she said without emotion. "There's room at the breakfast bar. You can use that." I stared at her, not because of what she said, but how easy it came out of her mouth, like we were the afterthought, like we didn't belong. I turned toward the breakfast bar. 2 tall stools. One of them had a stack of magazines on it. No tablecloth, no decorations, no plates, just the leftovers from someone's coffee that morning. My son blinked fast, trying to pretend he wasn't upset. My daughter gripped the pie tin like it was a lifeline. I forced a smile, sat them both down gently, pulled over a paper towel roll to use as napkins. I didn't say a word, because if I did, I would have screamed, or cried, or both. Instead, I served them turkey from the serving tray no one offered to pass, cut it into tiny pieces, and told them we were having a special Thanksgiving spot, just us. They nodded. Because they're kind, kinder than anyone at that long, full table. I caught my dad glancing over once. He gave me a tight nod, the kind that says, "This is your fault." And maybe in their minds, it was. I left my husband. I didn't marry the man they approved of. I raised my kids alone. I chose peace over pretending. Sophie, my best friend, she told me not to come. She told me, "You don't owe them your pain, not this year. Let them have their empty traditions." But I came anyway. Because some part of me, some desperate flickering part, still wanted to be chosen. And tonight, they made it clear. I'm not. I never was. Not when I needed them after the divorce, not when my son got sick, not when I had to move back into a 1-bedroom apartment, and they didn't even ask how we were managing. This wasn't just a mistake. It wasn't poor planning. It was a message. We are not part of the family, and I'm done begging to be. That night, as my kids and I ate on those cold bar stools, I decided something. I won't break in front of them. But I will never forget this, and I promise you, they'll never forget what's coming next either. You don't wake up one day and suddenly feel unwanted. It builds slowly, like water rising in a room you didn't know was flooding. Looking back now, I realize Thanksgiving wasn't the betrayal. It was the confirmation. I grew up being the quiet one, the easy child, not because I wanted to be, but because I had to be. My brother Sean took up all the air in the room. He was the wild one, the funny one. He could crash a bike into the neighbor's mailbox and get a standing ovation. I could get straight A's and barely earn a glance. I learned early, if I didn't make waves, I wouldn't drown. So I helped Mom in the kitchen. I made my bed. I stayed small, hoping they'd see me anyway. But they didn't. Not really. When I got pregnant at 19, the silence in the house was deafening. No yelling, no questions. Just a quiet kind of shame that followed me like a shadow. My dad didn't speak to me for 2 weeks. My mom sat me down and said, "You've made your bed, now you lie in it." Then she got up and made tea like nothing happened. I married the father 2 years later, not because it was right, but because I thought maybe it would fix everything. Stability, a husband, a name. Maybe they'd finally see me as someone worth loving again. But that marriage, God, he didn't hit me. So I thought I couldn't call it abuse. But he chipped away at me every day, mocked the way I parented, told me I was lucky he stayed, told our son he was too sensitive, and our daughter that she cried too much. I stayed for 7 years. 7 years of walking on glass. When I finally left, my dad said it was a rash decision. My mom said, "You always did like making things dramatic." Sean didn't say anything at all. He just smirked when I walked in alone at a family barbecue. That was the first time I realized. They hadn't been waiting for me to leave. They'd been expecting it. From the outside, we looked like a family. But inside, there were patterns. Tiny cuts that added up over time, like the time Mom regifted the handmade card my daughter gave her. My daughter had drawn a picture of them holding hands in a garden. A week later, I saw it in the trash, wrapped around a bottle of hand lotion, with someone else's name scribbled over the original, or the last Christmas party. Sean brought a new girlfriend, a girl he'd known for 2 months. She sat at the head of the table, my mother's spot. And no one said a word. I was told to bring napkins. That was it. Then there were the birthdays. My daughter's 6th came and went. Nothing from my parents. No call, no card. But 2 weeks later, my mom posted a picture of a check she sent to Sean's dog groomer with a caption that read, "Support small businesses." And I'm supposed to believe Thanksgiving was an accident? No. I started replaying every family event in my head. The missing name on the wedding invite. The group photo I wasn't in. The Mother's Day lunch that I wasn't told about. They were erasing me in pieces, quietly, strategically. Like I was a guest they forgot to uninvite. Sophie, my best friend, always noticed. She told me once, "You act like they left the door open, but I think they locked it, and you're the only one still knocking." But I didn't want to believe that. I wanted my kids to have grandparents, to feel like they belonged somewhere, even if I didn't. Now I see it clearly. They don't see my children as family. They see them as extensions of my failure. And me? I'm the chapter they regret. And here's the thing about being the responsible one. You learn to endure, to wait, to survive quietly. But quiet doesn't mean weak. It just means I've been watching, and I've watched long enough. This time, they made it public. They made it visible. And now I'm done playing nice. The morning after Thanksgiving was quiet. Too quiet. But not the peaceful kind. The kind that wraps around your chest and makes it hard to breathe. I found Lily in the kitchen, her feet dangling off a chair too tall for her, peeling the crust off a piece of toast. Noah was still asleep on the couch, curled up like a question mark under his superhero blanket. I poured coffee I didn't want, because I needed something warm to hold. Then Lily looked up at me and asked, "Why did Grandma ignore us? Just like that." No hesitation, no softening, and I froze. Because what do you say to that? How do you explain cruelty when it comes wrapped in family? I swallowed hard and said, "I don't think she meant to." But Lily interrupted me. She didn't even say hi. Her voice was calm, like she'd already accepted it. That hurt more than anything. Later that night, after the kids went to bed, I sat on the edge of the couch and opened Facebook. I didn't know what I was looking for, but I kept scrolling anyway. Post after post, Thanksgiving 2019, a table full of food and smiling faces. No me, no kids. Thanksgiving 2020, Sean carving a turkey like he invented it. Caption: grateful for family that always shows up. 2021, a pumpkin centerpiece and my mom's classic caption, another year, another full house. But not one corner of that house had our names in it. I scrolled through birthdays, barbecues, baby showers. Cousins I hadn't seen in years were tagged. Even Sean's ex was still in the Christmas photo from 2 years ago. But us? Gone. Erased and... Suddenly, all the little moments that I'd brushed off came crashing back. That time my dad looked at me, after I told him about leaving my ex, and said, "Well, you chose your path. Now walk it." Or the Christmas dinner when everyone was unwrapping gifts in the living room. And my mom handed me a pile of coats and said, "Could you find a place for these?" Like I was the help. Or Sean, leaning over during dinner once to whisper, "Why do you always make everything about you?" Because God forbid I tried to speak when it wasn't convenient. I always made excuses. They were tired. They forgot. It was just one event. But Lily saw it, clearer than I ever did. She came to me the next night with a drawing. Her, Noah, me, sitting on one side of a table, the rest of the family on the other. She didn't say much, just handed it to me and whispered, "I don't think Grandma likes us. Not you, us." And something broke in me. It wasn't just me they'd been rejecting. It was my children. My son still believed they cared. He still asked to call Grandma sometimes, even after the silence, even after the ignored birthdays. But Lily knew. And once she said it out loud, I couldn't unhear it. We were never welcome. Not really. They were just polite enough to avoid confrontation, cold enough to make sure we felt it anyway. That weekend, I tried to write a letter to my mom. Something honest, something vulnerable. I even started it 3 times. "Mom, I just want to understand. It's been weighing on me. Please don't let this affect the kids." But I couldn't finish it, because halfway through, I realized I wasn't trying to make peace. I was begging to be seen, begging for scraps of kindness. And that's when it hit me. Silence. Silence was the game they always played. It was how they punished, how they erased. So I decided I'd speak it back to them. I didn't call, didn't text, didn't like the next family photo when it popped up with another caption about grateful hearts. Instead, I packed up the last of the old photo albums I had left, the ones where we were still included, and put them in a box in the attic. I didn't throw them out, but I didn't want to look at them anymore either. A few days later, I got a message from Jenna, my cousin. She's quiet, always has been. She's one of the few who ever hugged me first. She sent a simple note. "I saw what happened on Thanksgiving. I'm sorry. I didn't know they didn't invite you to the table." I told her they didn't forget, they just didn't care. She didn't argue. Instead, she said, "If you ever want to come to our table, there's always room." And that one line, it told me everything I needed to know, because sometimes the real family isn't the one you're born into. It's the one that pulls up a chair without you asking. A few days after that, I ran into Derek, an old high school friend, the kind of guy you smile at in the grocery store, but never expect to talk to again. He said he'd heard I was back in town, and asked how I was doing. I gave the polite, "We're hanging in there." But he just looked at me and said, "You don't have to pretend with me." We talked for almost an hour in the cereal aisle. Turns out he works in real estate now. Said if I ever wanted a fresh start, a better school district, a place with a little space to breathe, he could help. At the time, I didn't know what to do with that offer, but I tucked it away. Because something inside me was shifting. They used silence to erase me, but I would use silence to rebuild me, and when I speak again, it won't be to beg. It'll be to end the story they tried to write for me. You don't. Scream when you finally had enough. You go quiet. So quiet it makes the people who hurt you wonder if they miscalculated. Silence, when you've been ignored your whole life, becomes the sharpest sound in the room. I didn't slam doors, didn't send angry texts, didn't post a dramatic goodbye. I just vanished. Unfollowed every family member on social media, muted the group chat, took the holiday card off the fridge. The one with all of them standing in front of a Christmas tree that my kids never got to see. They didn't notice at first, because they never looked for me unless they needed something. But they would. The first real step was distance. Not physical, emotional. No more birthday gifts. No last-minute calls asking if I could bring a few things to parties. I stopped reminding them of our existence, and in that silence, I found space to breathe, to think. To build. That's when the idea came. It started as a voice memo. I was folding laundry late at night, the kids were asleep, and I just started talking about single motherhood, loneliness, shame, resilience, the pain of being erased, and the power of reclaiming space. I posted it anonymously, titled it, The Quiet Comeback. Didn't expect much, maybe 10 listens, but it hit something in people. A week later, it had over 1,000 downloads and comments. So many women writing, I thought it was just me. I kept going. 1 episode a week, stories, struggles, wins. I never named names, never made it about revenge. But I told the truth, and people, they felt it. One morning, I woke up to Miranda, my neighbor 2 doors down, knocking with coffee in one hand and her phone in the other. She smiled and said, "You know you're trending on local Twitter, right?" I laughed, half asleep. "Wait, what?" She held up her phone. There it was, a clip of my latest episode. Quote, "When you've been silenced for years, speaking up feels like rebellion." Miranda just looked at me and said, "I always knew something was off with your parents. The way they treated you at that block party. It made my stomach turn." Then she paused. "You ever think about hosting your own event?" And just like that, the idea rooted itself. What if I stopped waiting to be invited and built the table myself? Meanwhile, something else had been simmering in the background. My dad's antique shop, small, dusty, loyal clientele, but outdated. No website, no social media, still ran paper. Invoices. It worked because of reputation, because people in town trusted the family name. But reputation is fragile, especially when your cracks become public. That's when Derek stepped in. We'd kept in touch since running into each other at the store. He'd started showing up with little things, paint swatches, property listings, coffee when I forgot to eat. One afternoon, he pulled out a folded piece of paper and said, "I know the shop next to your dad's just went up for sale. It's a solid spot, great foot traffic. I can help you get it." I looked at him, startled. Why would I want to open a store next to his? Derek smiled, slow and certain. Not just a store, a studio, podcast recording, women's circles, even pop-ups. Make it something they can't ignore. I didn't answer right away, but in my chest, something sparked. I signed the lease a week later, and I didn't tell anyone, just quietly gutted it, painted it warm, welcoming colors. Put up a sign, The Quiet Comeback Collective. By the time my dad noticed, it was already open. He didn't say a word to me, but I saw him looking through the window once, jaw clenched, hands in fists. And that's when I knew it was working, not because he was angry, but because for the first time, he had to see me. That November, Miranda and I organized a neighborhood Thanksgiving potluck. Flyers went out to every apartment complex, church board, and school bulletin. We wrote at the bottom, "No one sits alone, no one gets left out. Ever." The turnout shocked us. Single moms, grandparents raising grandkids, people who had nowhere else to go. They showed up, and we fed them. Lily helped make the name tags. Noah passed out cookies like it was his job, and for the first time, my kids sat at the center of a table, laughing, talking, belonging. Ethan, a local reporter, showed up halfway through. Said someone tipped him off about a holiday story with real heart. He interviewed me in front of the dessert table, asked what inspired the event. I looked at him, then over at my kids and said, "Being invisible teaches you who to never become." 2 days later, the article ran. She was left out, so she built her own table. I didn't share it, didn't tag anyone. But my mother read it. I know because she called. I didn't pick up. Instead, I listened to the voicemail. Her voice, tight, controlled. She said, "It would have been nice if you invited family too." Then she hung up. No apology, just the sound of someone realizing they were no longer the center of my orbit. A week after the article went live, I got a DM. It was from Rachel, Sean's ex. We'd only met twice. She'd been quiet, polite. I always got the sense she didn't like the family drama. Her message read, "I read the article. Just wanted to say, they did the same to me. When Sean and I split, your mom told me I was never really one of them. Even after 5 years. Thought you should have this." She attached screenshots, legal documents, text threads, things that would matter later. For reasons I hadn't even imagined yet. Meanwhile, the ripple was spreading. Rachel shared some of those texts online with her own story, Sean's name. Let's just say it wasn't golden anymore. Clients started backing out of deals. My dad's shop lost foot traffic. Bad press and old wounds don't mix well in small towns. And me, I kept posting, kept recording, kept growing. The quiet comeback wasn't just a podcast now. It was a movement. And I didn't have to say a word to my family. I just kept showing up, where they couldn't mute me. I wasn't trying to destroy them. I wasn't out for blood, but I was done shrinking. They built their world around exclusion, so I built mine around belonging. And here's the thing about silence. When you've carried it your whole life, you learn how to weaponize it. I never yelled, never fought, never begged. I just kept building, until my existence was louder than their rejection. And I'm not finished yet. Some wounds don't bleed. They just stay, quiet. But there comes a moment, one you don't see coming, when you realize you're finally free. Not because they said sorry, but because you stopped needing them to. It was Christmas Eve. The kids were decorating sugar, cookies in the next room. Noah kept sneaking spoonfuls of frosting when he thought I wasn't looking. Lily was humming to herself, placing tiny stars on each cookie like they were masterpieces. The phone rang. The name on the screen? Mom. I stared at it for a moment, then picked up. Her voice was light, too light. "Hey, sweetie, are you coming over?" I didn't answer right away. I just let the silence sit. Then I said, "No. You made it clear where we belong." There was a pause. Then her voice got smaller. "We miss the kids." I didn't flinch, didn't soften. "You never had them to begin with." Then I hung up. I didn't cry. Not this time, because the truth had already settled in my bones, and I'd learned that clarity is a kind of peace. The next day, something strange happened. Ethan, the reporter, called to say his Thanksgiving piece won a community journalism award. He sounded more excited than I was. "It wasn't just the story," he said. "It was you, what you built. It meant something." I thanked him, hung up, and just sat there for a minute, letting the moment wash over me. Not validation, but vindication. A few days later, the podcast hit a milestone. First sponsorship. An independent bookstore offered to partner for a segment called Single Mom Stories. People started asking about my family. I just smiled and said, "Some family is chosen." No bitterness, just truth. Meanwhile, the antique shop next door went quiet. First, the hours shortened. Then the "Closed Today" sign stayed up longer and longer, until one day, it was permanent. No announcement. No goodbye. It was just gone. But my space? It grew. We added bookshelves, craft tables, story time every Thursday, kids laughing, moms resting, a space where no one sat at the edge of the room wondering if they were welcome. One evening, Jenna walked in. She looked around, overwhelmed. Then she hugged me, tight, tears in her eyes. "I should have spoken up sooner," she whispered. I pulled back, met her eyes, and said, "You're here now," and that was enough. Rachel came by a week later, dropped off cupcakes for our writing group. Miranda brought blankets for the reading nook. These women, once quiet, once dismissed, now showed up loud, clear, and proud. We weren't survivors anymore. We were builders, and as for Sean, he left town. No goodbye, just a notice on his Facebook. That said, "Starting fresh, Mom and Dad." They sent a holiday card, gold trim, smiling photo, the kind that screams, "We're still the perfect family." I didn't even open it, just tossed it straight into the trash. Because I finally understood something. They didn't destroy me. They revealed me. And now? Now I sit at the head of a table I built with my own hands, surrounded by people who never needed blood to treat me like family, and this time, no one is invisible. The sun was soft that evening, the kind of light that feels like closure. I sat on our new porch, legs tucked under me, coffee growing cold in my hands. Lily and Noah were on the steps, laughing, cheeks smudged with glitter from craft time. Their laughter drifted into the quiet like music that didn't need permission, and, in that moment, I realized something. We never needed their table. We needed our own, not the kind built on rules and expectations, but one shaped by love, by presence, by the kind of peace that doesn't ask to be earned. Sometimes the greatest revenge isn't rage. It's not screaming or slamming doors. It's absence. It's the silence that follows when you finally stop, chasing the people who were never reaching for you. It's peace, the kind they never wanted you to find, because it meant you wouldn't need them anymore. I'm not the daughter they remember. I'm the woman they didn't expect me to become. And I didn't just survive the erasure. I rewrote the story, and this time, we sit at the center of it, together, whole, free,